This is Believe in Buckeyes. I'm Brian Brown with All-American quarterback Chimdi Chekwa. We have a good show for you guys today. And first off, we got to address it, man. The people we want to know, man. It's like we took a week off. We went on vacation. Chim went to Aruba to celebrate that 10 years of marriage, man. How was the island, man?
It was a good time, man. It was a good time. Got to know some of the locals. Got to experience some natural beauty. Got to experience just some relaxation. So
Yeah.
it was a good time. Didn't take the
Man,
kids, so
Oh, you could have just went around the corner if you ain't had a kid. That sounds like a great time to relax. So yeah, man, that
it was good.
sounds fantastic. Sounds like it was needed too. That's always good. Always good. Always good. But yeah, so on today's show here, we wanted to kind of lock in, man. As we've been speaking over the summer, obviously we've been having guys commit. We've been talking to guys from Oregon, because they're still in some of our Ohio guys. And it's just kind of been wild west a little bit when it comes to recruiting. Ohio State, be honest, they've been knocking out the park. It's been wild for other guys, but I guess our standards are set high, number one class of 25. But we still feel like, as a unit, we still kind of have some work to do, and especially when it comes to the offensive line here at Ohio State. So the biggest name that's still out there that's Ohio State has circled on their big board is a David Sanders out of Charlotte, North Carolina. He's not set to make his commitment date until August 17th. We know there's still a few big profile name guys out there still waiting to make their decision. He at least set a date. So we kind of have to wait a few weeks on that. But I guess we kind of want to address on this show. I mean, what does Ohio State offensive line looks like? First of all, why do they want a guy like that so much, right? Towards the end of the class, we got the number one class. Why are we still going so hard for a guy? And then two, what do we look like if we don't land him? How's the Ohio State offensive line kind of shake up over the next couple of years? Chim, obviously I know the offensive line is, as we know, to be a national championship team, you have to have the play up front. Over the last couple of years, I'm not saying last couple of years, last year in particular, we could have performed a little better up front as a unit. But first off, I guess, what do you think about our offensive line? And then how do you think we fare up? And why do we want this guy, David Sanders, so much?
Yeah, I think across the board, if you ask Buckeye fans in general, at least since we kind of corrected the defensive challenges a few years back, I think the offensive line has been, in most fans' eyes, a little bit of a sore spot. I think, the offensive, this is one of those things where it's easy to blame the offensive line, right?
Yeah.
For a lot of the bad things that happen. But I think across the board, I feel like when it comes to recruiting the top guys, when it comes to, execution in the run game, when it comes to protecting the quarterback, I think there's been some more to be desired from the offensive line in general. If you're just comparing them with, the talent across the entire team and how the play has been. I honestly think the talent is there. So I'm not as concerned, but especially when it comes to recruiting, I feel like recruiting could be better. When you look at Ohio State and you start comparing the positions and how, across the board they've been able to get top recruits, high level recruits in pretty much every position, it feels like the offensive line has been lacking in comparison to those other positions. I think that's part of the reason why a guy like Sanders is like, you see big guy, big name after big name after big name commit somewhere else other than Ohio State. I think being able to secure a guy like Sanders would kind of dispel some of those concerns across the board. And not getting them will continue that narrative of, we're just not getting those guys at that position at the clip that we need to be, who we anticipate and expect Ohio State to.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it's kind of just the nature of Ohio State right now, right? I mean, right now when it comes to on the national level, Ohio State is known for getting essentially the top guys at, especially when you start thinking about our quarterbacks, right, and how highly rated those guys have been coming to college. The wide receivers, I feel like you almost have to be a 5-star to get an offer to play wide receiver at Ohio State. You look at, we've been talking a lot about the defensive backs in this recruiting class and us having currently the number 1, number 2 cornerback of the nation committed. And neither of those guys are from Ohio. We kind of, we've been having discussion on, okay, where do Ohio guys fall in who are ranked really high nationally, but they're just not ranked as high as these guys. So on the offensive line, we tend, like you say, we're just not making that national splash when it comes to a lot of our offensive lineman guys. Obviously, the unit we have now, Diamond Jackson being out of Texas, Josh Simmons, our left tackle, being out of California. Jackson was a recruit, big-time recruit, 5-star recruit coming in from Texas. But, you talk about a guy like Simmons out of the transfer portal. You talk about our starting center this year, Seth McLaughlin, out of the transfer portal. But then on the right side, you have, kind of some competition at right guard, at right tackle. You got Joshua Fryer, who's a Ohio guy who's been on the team for going into his last year. But it is just some concern. I mean, I guess when it comes down to it, you just kind of start looking at the roster, right? How do we line up? So this year we have a very experienced offensive line. I imagine from everything we hear about Chip Kelly, obviously we had Jonathan Stewart on the show. He said he's going to make offensive line play really simple. So those guys can play really fast. And I feel like that's kind of what is needed for this group. When you start looking at last year, it seems like a lot of times there was kind of a lot of confusion up front about where guys were supposed to be, what direction the guys were supposed to be going in. And so we expect that to be, fixed this year, right? We expect the guys to know where they're going. And so we just have a lot, we have a lot of experience. We talk about Josh Fryer at the right side. He just started a full season at right tackle. He has many years of experience playing when he's not injured. Right guard, once again, kind of that only position where it's kind of a little bit up in the air who's going to take that spot. Center, we got the transfer Seth out of Alabama, ton of experience. Left guard, Diamond Jackson, essentially he's been playing for 4 seasons, 3-year starter there. Josh Simmons at left tackle, he started the whole season. So we have this season is really not too much of a concern, right? We kind of have our guys. But then you start looking at the 26th year, which obviously is college football. Guys are going to leave. Fryer is a senior. Seth is a senior. Diamond Jackson is a senior. Josh Simmons, he has 2 years of eligibility, but this is his 4th year of college football. So if he has a good year with his athletic build, it's a good chance he might want to go on to the NFL as well. So now you're looking at losing potentially 3 or 4 guys off the line. And then now it's like, okay, now who do we have to kind of plug in these spots? And then that's where I'm gonna say the lack of experience is just really not there. I've seen the guys enough to know that we have the talent. The talent is one thing, and off the line is kind of like the mentality to kind of go out there and be able to execute play after play after play. So that's where we kind of get kind of thin. And a guy like David Sanders, who's essentially a very athletic offensive lineman, has to build. You could maybe figure out a way that where if he does commit, he could kind of get some playing time right away, especially if we lose 2 offensive tackles off the line. It's just, it's just not a ton of experience there to say that these guys that we do have currently on the roster could definitely fit in, step in that role, and be able to kind of execute play after play.
Yeah, and I think, Ohio State, with all the talent that is committing year after year, with all the guys that are coming there, the one way within the Big Ten that you can compete with a team with this level of talent is being able to beat them in the trenches and being able to have the offensive line that may outplay Ohio State's offensive line. And that's really where you have to win. If you're Wisconsin or Iowa or Michigan, there's still a window of opportunity to do that. If you're Penn State, it's Penn State. Penn State is going to play the game like Ohio State, and it's just not going to be good enough. But these other teams, if they can sell these offensive linemen and these guys in the trenches on their ability to develop you, we're going to have guys who are juniors and seniors who are well experienced, can play, and you're going to be behind those guys for a year, maybe 2 years. It's going to be your turn, and you're going to have an opportunity to be a top 3-round pick. Like they can sell that, and they can win on that. Mm-hmm. And to me, and I haven't played the position, I haven't played offensive line. I never was in my entire life big enough to ever come close to being an offensive lineman, right? But it feels like overall, like it's a position that needs development, right? And
Yeah,
in every position in football now, kids are starting younger and younger. Coach, I'm coaching kids in middle school on how to play a cornerback position. Right, so there's an opportunity for some of these guys who have the athletic ability and they already have the size when they get to Ohio State to be ready to play corner, to be ready to play a receiver, right? And still some development to do, but 2-3 years they may be ready for the NFL. I think an offensive line, man, it just feels like this generally it needs more time, right? It needs more development. And it's hard to take a big guy who's in high school who's really bigger than everybody at his school, right? This
right.
physical is way bigger than him. To now transition to college where you have to guard some of the best athletes coming off the ball on the defensive line. Like that is a tough transition. And trying to just get the top guys who are, 5-star guys, just because they're a 5-star, they still need to be able to develop and be able to play that position. So coaching is a big part of it. And you
Yeah,
got to think these kids who are making decisions are like, which one of these coaches are going to put me in the position to be a guy who can really make the jump from college to the NFL, which is another big league.
yeah, that's for sure. True. I mean, obviously I lived it, right? In high school, I think my senior year I was probably listed at 6'4", 325 pounds, 330, something of the sort. So like I go out there and it's just you go out there as a D1 off the lineman in high school. That's the easiest football you're gonna play. You're gonna go out there and like you say, you're the biggest guy by far. You just kind of go out there and it just comes to you. It's a pretty natural run over for the majority of the games that you play, and it's just really
Yeah.
nothing else, no one else could do. But obviously, I made the transition to college, and I also made the transition to play pro. By far, the toughest transition is high school to college. College to pro is it's just a transition. You got to learn more. You got to know more mentally, things of that nature. But physically, like you were saying, that's the big jump because now you're looking at guys that's your size, maybe bigger. Definitely your first year in. Definitely a lot of guys that's going to be more stronger than you, weight room wise and things of that nature. And you have to kind of understand now that like, okay, technique really matters. Like if I take
Yeah.
a bad step here or if I'm a little bit late, like this play is over with. Like this guy's going to make the play in the backfield or it's going to be a sack or something of that nature. And you just don't have that window of opportunity to make mistakes. And you just kind of have to learn how to execute. Okay, for this play, I need to do this for it to be a success. Do it, get back to the huddle or, wherever, get back to the line of scrimmage, and then be able to do it again. And it kind of just takes some time to kind of get it. And then another thing about, that leap from high school to college is things change. Playbooks kind of change from week to week. And I know I took 1 year, I redshirted my first year in college to kind of catch up physically needing there. My second year, I probably was like the sixth offensive lineman. So if anyone got injured, I probably was going to go in the game. But that was the transition mentally, getting ready week to week, because you start to kind of tweak plays a little bit based on the defense that you're going against. And that took that was another leap that you kind of had to take. So it took me essentially 2 years to really kind of understand the flow to be really all the way ready to kind of go out there on Saturdays and execute. And so we were looking at our roster, our current roster, is, after this year, we're looking at a bunch of guys with very little experience, like I was saying. Looking at it now, at the offensive tackle position. So let's imagine our 2 offensive tackles play this season and leave. The next guys behind them is Zim Milowski and George Fitzpatrick on the depth chart as the tackle position.
Yeah.
We have, those guys are going to year 4 for them, and we haven't seen them play, right? So we don't really know what we have there. And then behind that, as we getting guys younger, you start looking at Luke Montgomery, who was a high pick out of Findlay, Ohio. They have him listed on the depth chart as a guard. And we know, from spring, they had him competing at that guard position. So is he ready to play tackle? Then you start looking at the true freshmen. You got Deontay Armstrong out of Cleveland, Ohio. True freshman. This is just going to be his first year of college football. Obviously, came in early for the spring. So, it's just not a ton of guys there that has experience that we could count on that after the 25 season we know we can kind of plug into these positions. So that's probably why it's a little bit more of an emphasis on the David Sanders. A guy, from looking at him athletically, he looks the part. But obviously, he has to kind of come in and learn everything that just went over. But he kind of checks a lot of boxes. That's why I probably could see, the team kind of doing a little bit more to get him. There are a couple guys on that class, but you got Carter Lowe out of the 25 class. He's out of Toledo, Ohio, and also Jake Cook, who's out of essentially the Columbus, Ohio area, but he's listed as a guard. So once again, on those edges, it could get a little thin, right?
Yeah, I think that's where the concern comes in general is, I mean, yeah, we need guys. We need to get top recruits. We need to do all that stuff. But at some point, you got to have a tackle, right? You have to have a guy. You have to have a left tackle, a guy who can actually just move his feet and play the position. And if you don't have him, you got to go get him. In the transfer portal, you got to go find a guy. And I think that's where you really want to get one of those top guys, because now I potentially have a guy who fits the mold that could play this position. And it's not a liability. Everywhere else, we got top guys, we got guys we can help continue to develop them, whatever. But at some point, you need that guy who fits the profile of being able to play that left tackle position. And I think that's why it's important. Outside of that, I think they got enough guys on the roster. But
yeah,
and in today's day and age, with the transfer portal, I mean, it's a concern, but there's always the opportunity to supplement with the transfer portal. I think that's also something to look at in future years.
Yeah, that's the card in the back pocket, man. You just go get it out the portal, man. So, yeah, we know how that works. Yeah, but I forgot Ian Moore. Ian Moore is a good player. I meant to mention him as an offensive tackle, one of the young guys that's on the roster. I think he'd be a fantastic player at Ohio State. But, yeah, let's talk about so this I think this came out today, but the media started to vote on the conference, on who they felt would finish number one, and the conference kind of started ranking teams. I mean, it's no surprise. Ohio State was ranked number one. Number two was Oregon. What's your thoughts on that list? Any surprises there from the media and their thoughts on how this Big Ten season would shake out?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one kind of surprise is it's not really, but it kind of Penn State at number 3 instead of Michigan at number 3. But I mean, 3, 4. I think kind of in that second tier. That's exactly where Penn State should be, like they always are. Outside of that, I think USC was 5, Iowa 6.
I don't know, man. I call USC at 6. I thought that was interesting. Iowa was at 5.
Yeah, Iowa.
I mean, some of that
USC
stuff kind of, I don't know how official all that stuff is. So it's kind of in that window, right?
Yeah, it's to be determined. I think they're in the right tiers. I like the tiers because, I mean, you don't know exactly how it shakes out, but USC to me is the most interesting of all the teams in the Big Ten. Obviously, one, because they're a team coming from the Pac whatever and coming to the Big Ten. And it's a different style of play. They're all the way on the West Coast. They got to travel real distance to play some of these Big Ten teams. And they don't play defense. So when a team doesn't play defense, you really don't know how the game's going to go, right? It's like you just don't know. Like, it could be a shootout both ways. It could be that USC has so much firepower that, the other team can't really compete. Or they can just get beat. Because you can't stop the other team. So it's going to be interesting, really, to see how they transition and do they improve defense. They got new defensive coach. They're doing some things there. They're still losing in recruiting in Oregon. Guys still leaving Southern California to go play elsewhere. And I just don't see them. I don't see them being able to transition and get that defense to where it needs to be in that second tier. So it's going to be interesting. The Iowa team that doesn't play offense and the USC team that doesn't play defense. That's going to be the interesting battle.
Yeah, it is interesting because this Lincoln Riley was brought in to make USC relevant again, right? And obviously, you had Caleb Williams, his number 1 draft pick, and the number 1 quarterback, number 1 draft pick. And 2 seasons ago, right? I mean, it was essentially a couple plays away from making the playoffs, right? And obviously, they couldn't get the job done. Then last season, once again, due to the defense, they ended up losing a few games. But I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him. I think if you're talking about pressure as far as coaches in the Big Ten, I mean, it's not even close. Like, he's definitely has the most pressure on him to essentially have a good season, somehow get that team into the playoffs and make his team relevant here in this new Big Ten. So it'd be interesting to see. But one more thing that hit the news today, man. I think this is interesting, man. So I never heard of this show. I just kind of saw the article today. But Netflix has a show called Untold, and basically it looks like it's like an interview of sorts. Like they kind of take interesting people and kind of do a deep dive into like the story that kind of why they're essentially irrelevant. And your guy, this is your guy. I'm gonna say your guy, Conor Stallions out of Michigan, man, is set to have an episode released, I believe, on August 27th, where he's going to kind of, I don't know, more or less take a deep dive into the Michigan cheating scandal. Man, that's I mean, I know around here that's must see TV, right?
yeah, it is must see TV, and I'm excited to watch it. And I'm skeptical of it because one thing I learned this past year when the cheating stuff kind of came out initially, the narratives that flew across Michigan Twitter and media, etc. I learned that there's a lot of powerful Michigan alumni in media. It's a lot of them, a ton of them, like all across ESPN and everything. Everybody was spinning the same coordinated narrative of they should allow earpieces in the helmet, so none of this stuff would happen. They should it's like everybody is like they had a meeting, and then you heard the same stuff everywhere. I'm not sure if any of those alumni have infiltrated the Netflix Untold whatever story area, but yeah. So I'm skeptical because one is he going to tell us what he was doing on the Central Michigan side? Like I'm very interested. Like he gonna tell us why he was on the sideline in that game. And is he gonna tell us what was in the manifesto? Like there's a lot of questions that I'm not really expecting real answers. Well, what do you think about this?
Man, I don't know, man, because I say like this. Also, we had Pierre Woods, who's a Michigan alum, and me and him, same high school out of Cleveland. And once again, he hit that narrative on the head. I mean, just like the spot on, like boom, 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 boom. Like, man, like you guys, like y'all really had y'all really sent out communications. Like this is how you speak on these points if you're asked about it. But I don't know, man, because it feels like, and now I say it feels like, but what I'm hoping or thinking may have happened is maybe Michigan is not taking care of him like he feels like he should be taken care of. Obviously, due to the work that he put in, Michigan goes from essentially the team as a good team to essentially being a relevant team and then win a national championship. And he has to feel like he's a huge part of that. But essentially when things hit, they cut ties with him, right? They cut ties with him. Yeah. They say he's no longer a part of the program. Obviously he's no longer with the team. He's now on the sidelines or anything of that nature. Like you seen him previously, he's, in the past, he's on the sideline with like this book and he's like whispering things into the coordinator ears before they call plays after they see how the offense or defense lines up. And all of a sudden he's no longer there. Right. And now all the guys that essentially that probably most likely brought him in, Harbaugh and them, they're all gone. They all went off to the NFL. They all went, took separate jobs. And I don't know for sure, but I don't think Conor Stallions has a coaching gig right now. I'll be very surprised if he did. I feel like that would be big news. So he most likely, is out of a gig right now. So maybe this is his way to, to kind of pay something back. Maybe this way to reset to gain some funds here. Speaking of Netflix and receiving a check, receiving the payment, and he's opening us up to things that we weren't even really aware of, and he kind of dives into it and gives us some perspective on how bad things really were up there with Michigan when it comes to this, that unfair advantage that they had going into these games.
Yeah, I hope so. And now, honestly, Conor Stallions, if you come across the Believe in Buckeye show, we'll love to have you on here as well.
Oh yeah,
come here. We'll give you the platform to tell your story to Buckeye fans. So we want to know. We want to know. We want to know why you on Central Michigan sideline. We want to know what's in the manifesto. We want to know, were you able to call out plays before they happen? Were you able to see something and say, hey, they're running it? Was Michigan able to change their play call based on that intel? How instrumental were you in Michigan's ability to go on a run and close it out with a national championship? We want to know. So
we want to know.
I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see it.
That's for sure. Yeah, before we jump off, NCAA, the game is out, man. The game is out. Obviously, I've been on a little vacation myself, but I'll get on there soon. I'm a PlayStation guy. I don't know my gamer tag off the time, but once I know my gamer tag, I will share it on the show. Feel free to join. Feel free to play. I'm gonna be playing as the Buckeyes. I'm gonna be winning games because that's what I do. But I catch you guys here on that in a week. And another thing, about a week or so, you got real football. I think maybe
real football is coming.
Real football. Fall camp is opening up for Ohio State, and obviously we'll be bringing you guys all the news that we could gather on that, giving you guys our insights and just kind of letting you know what our team is shaping out to be. So always feel free to follow us on all platforms regarding YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. Just kind of log in with us, be with us for the season. It's going to be a good one. I'd like to end all our shows with an OH.
I-O.
Go Bucks. Catch you guys next time.